The supply clerk sneered as he flung the requisition form back across the counter. "Listen, sweetheart, go find a real Marine to sign this. I'm not here to play games with the help." Corporal Riley Montgomery held her composure despite the heat rising in her chest, her Purple Heart citation tucked discreetly in her back pocket. A Navy SEAL observing the scene from behind her was about to act in a way that would jolt the armory to its foundation. At 23, Riley Montgomery swept an industrial mop across the polished floors of Camp Lejeune's main armory, her auburn hair secured in a tight regulation bun. Her utility uniform bore faint outlines where combat patches once shone, now faded into obscurity. To most passers-by, she was just another maintenance worker going through the motions. The armory thrummed with activity as Marines and visiting Navy SEALs geared up for joint training drills. Riley moved silently between weapon racks and supply stations, her actions precise and deliberate. Assigned to facilities maintenance for the past 6 months, she stayed occupied but felt like a shadow among the combat units that dominated the space daily. Morning sunlight filtered through high windows, casting elongated shadows across the concrete. Riley arrived early, as was her habit, intent on finishing before the afternoon surge. Her uniform lacked ribbons or insignia, concealing the remarkable service record buried in her file. To her colleagues, she was merely the quiet young woman who kept their workspace spotless. Riley enlisted straight out of high school in a rural Tennessee town, motivated by a longing to serve a cause greater than herself. Her grandfather, a Vietnam Marine, had shared tales of camaraderie and sacrifice that ignited an unshakable sense of duty. On her first Afghanistan deployment with the 2nd Marine Expeditionary Force as a combat medic, she found her purpose. The defining moment struck during her second tour when her convoy hit an IED outside Helmand Province. Under hail of enemy fire from the hills, Riley crawled through the kill zone 3 times, dragging injured Marines to safety. She saved 4 lives that day, sustaining shrapnel to her left shoulder and a bullet graze across her side. The 47-minute ordeal felt like an eternity in her mind. The Purple Heart and Bronze Star with valor that followed were treasures, but seeing those Marines reunite with their families was her true victory. Injuries and PTSD later relegated her to non-combat roles, a shift that dimmed part of her identity. Still, Riley clung to the belief that every Marine role held value, whether saving lives in combat or maintaining spaces for others to prepare. The morning progressed normally until Riley needed cleaning supplies from the armory storage. She approached the supply window with her routine request form, a task she'd completed countless times. Behind the counter stood Sergeant Davis, a veteran supply clerk who'd never seen deployment, but exuded the arrogance of someone who deemed his stateside post superior. Davis gave Riley a cursory glance as she slid the form forward, his eyes dragging over it with exaggerated slowness before he smirked, twisting her stomach. "Listen, sweetheart, go find a real Marine to sign this. I'm not here to play games with the help." His voice rang out, loud enough for the SEALs reviewing equipment nearby to hear. Riley's cheeks flushed, but she kept her tone even, affirming her Marine status and authorization. Davis barked a harsh laugh that bounced off the metal shelves. "Pushing a mop doesn't make you a Marine. Maybe stick to something easier." The words struck like blows. She'd faced enemy fire and saved lives, yet this humiliation cut deeper than any battlefield. The room fell quiet. Marines pretended to work while listening intently. The SEALs stilled, their focus locked on the counter. Please subscribe to The Heart Listens to support us and discover more inspiring stories like this. Your support helps us celebrate the sacrifices and triumphs of our nation's heroes. Davis persisted, suggesting jobs like food service or laundry, each comment crafted to undermine her service and worth. Riley stood rigid at the counter, hands clenching the edge until her knuckles blanched. Inside, emotions churned like a tempest. The Purple Heart in her pocket was a bittersweet anchor, proof of her finest and darkest hours. Yet Davis saw only the mop. Her thoughts darted to Afghanistan, where machine gun fire pinned her squad. She recalled the grit of dust and blood as she crawled to her wounded brothers, bullets kicking dirt near her face. She'd been fearless then, mission-focused. Now, surrounded by silent Marines, that bravery felt like a memory. The deepest wound wasn't Davis's taunts, but the averted eyes. Some likely knew her story. The combat medic with a Bronze Star. Others saw only Davis's view. A maintenance worker unworthy of regard. Riley yearned to speak, to recount the Marines she'd saved and the blood she'd spilled. But the words lodged in her throat, stifled by months of being overlooked. She'd learned to bury her pride, but this tested her limits. The silence grew oppressive as Davis refused her request, dramatically tearing the forum and letting pieces fall. Marines shifted uneasily, but none intervened. Military hierarchy and bystander apathy built a barrier around her. She tried again, explaining her authorization for basic supplies, but Davis interrupted, his voice sharpening. "Stop wasting time. Know your place." The humiliation escalated into a public spectacle as more personnel gathered. Chief Petty Officer Marcus Chun, a tall SEAL with weathered features and calm eyes, watched with mounting tension. His teammates noted his clenched fists, his training clashing with his urge to act. Tears stung Riley's eyes, but she fought them back. Not here, not now. She'd shed private tears, grieving her lost combat role and battling purposelessness. Davis's next jab, implying a degrading alternative role, crossed a line. The air shifted. Some Marines looked appalled. Others whispered about Davis overreaching. Chun, a four-deployment veteran whose trident was forged in blood and loyalty, had seen enough. Stepping forward with commanding presence, he hushed the armory. Silently, he collected Riley's torn form from the floor. Davis protested, but Chen's steely gaze silenced him. In a low, clear voice, Chen revealed he'd watched Davis disrespect a Purple Heart recipient and Bronze Star winner who'd braved a kill zone to save 4 Marines while taking hits. Davis's shock was instantaneous. Chun, having discreetly checked Riley's record on his phone, recited her heroism with briefing precision. The pivotal moment arrived. Chun unslung his 416 Hong Kong dollars rifle and handed it to Riley, stepping aside. "A warrior of your caliber deserves a weapon, not a mop," he said. In military tradition, a warrior's weapon is sacred, never shared lightly. Chen's act proclaimed Riley's worth beyond doubt. The armory fell into stunned silence, then murmurs of realization and regret. Marines who'd stayed silent now approached, offering quiet apologies. Davis, pale and humbled, fumbled to process a new form, his hands trembling. Riley took the rifle with shaky hands, not from fear, but emotion. For the first time in months, she felt seen as the Marine she was. The weapon's weight evoked her deployments, reaffirming her essence. Chen addressed the room, urging them to look past appearances and honor all veterans' hidden battles. He shared his own transition struggles, stressing respect across roles. The incident rippled through Camp Lejeune. Within hours, Riley heard from former COs and comrades. Leadership launched a discreet inquiry into the disrespect culture. Riley reclaimed her sense of purpose, realizing her value endured. 3 weeks later, she was reassigned to train new Marines in combat medicine and tactics, her skills no longer sidelined. The Armory event transformed base culture, prompting programs to honor diverse service records. Davis underwent counseling on respect. Riley kept Chen's rifle for an hour, returning it with a grateful note. She needed no weapon to feel validated. What mattered was Chen's recognition. If this story moves you, subscribe to The Heart Listens to support tales honoring our heroes' courage and sacrifice.